Hey guys, what's happening? Thanks for tuning in, coming back and watching. And wow, I haven't sat down in about 3 weeks to record a video. The last 10, 11 videos, whatever, I recorded before I went to Iceland. I left for Iceland on like February 5th. And so I went to Iceland. As soon as I came back, I had a weekend at home, saw the family, did laundry, edited a couple of photos, and hit the road. I had to go to Seattle for all of last week. Got home. Quick weekend at home. I got home Friday night, like at 1 in the morning. Had Saturday, and this is Sunday when I'm recording this. And then boom, I'm off again tomorrow. So life is a little crazy. I'm doing my best to get videos out, but I don't know if I'm going to have much more than this one this week. So appreciate you tuning in. Hope you're doing well. I feel like it's been forever since we hanging out. You know, I feel like this channel and me doing photo stuff is like me hanging out with you guys and just chilling and talking about photography, which we all love. And in fact, a lot of Iceland was like that. I was hanging out with great people and talking about photography, which we love. So this is going to be an Iceland editing photo session, if you will. Here I am in my library, and I've got, if you look over here, I've got like 5 different folders of images from Iceland. This is an ice cave. I mean, God, there's so much to talk about. I'm so torn. I want to do some editing. I want to talk to you about the trip. But I mean, we were in an ice cave, people, like a freaking ice cave. Look at that. And the sunrise was killer. I mean, the sun came through. I'm going to shut up or I'm never going to get anything done. Let me go find a photo because, oh yeah, by the way, look at this sunrise. We were killing it. It was gorgeous. And then we went up here and there was this arch thing. And look at this dude was standing up there and I was taking, as you can see, lots of photos of him. And that's not the point of this video. I swear I'm going to do something here. Let me go find it. Here it is. We were at Vesterhorn later that day. This was like the greatest day of my life, photographically speaking. In case my wife or daughter are watching this. Greatest day photographically. Okay, just to clarify. But Vesterhorn was amazing. So we went to Ice Cave in the morning, went to Vesterhorn in the afternoon. Anyway, it's this black sand beach, these mountains, and we were just killing it. And then, we had Chris, one of the people in the camp, stand there. I was sitting here on my butt, literally hunched down with my tripod really low, sitting next to Serge Romilly. Serge is amazing, super great guy. You've probably seen his channel. He was one of the masters on the trip. Him and I were sitting here, and I made this photo, and I really like this photo. So I think what I'm going to do is kind of go reset all of this, and instead of drag all the sliders and show you how I edit it, I will talk about how I edited it. So let me reset and we'll hit it. Okay, that took a few minutes. There's a lot of filters, which is another reason I don't want to do it all sort of live. I'd rather tell you what I'm doing. So first things first, fairly long long is the wrong word. It's a second, 1.3 seconds. So the thing with this is I was shooting tight aperture, f22, tripod mounted, ISO 100. It was late afternoon, coming up on sunset. There was no real light to speak of. And I wanted to capture longer, longish exposures. Basically, I want to capture movement. I think there's a wonderful juxtaposition here of really solid stuff in the distance, which is the mountains and the rocks on the right-hand side and the ones here on the lower left. Solid, unmoving things there. And then the fluidity of the water. It's just, I think, a beautiful juxtaposition. And I was trying to capture that. This is probably my favorite one. I took 30, 40, 50, I don't know. I took a lot. I sat there on my butt. Serge was sitting next to me, and we were firing away and laughing and talking. And then sometimes big waves would come in. We'd grab our gear and kind of crab walk backwards to try not to get our stuff soaked. Anyway, the point was I was trying to get this kind of look, and I was really happy with having got it. So in the light tool, the first thing I did is add a little bit of contrast, took down the highlights, bumped up the shadows, and that's really it. So there's the before and the after. That is the very basic thing that I often do in the light tool. Next, I went over here to AI Enhance. Let me turn that on. And that's something I do a lot. I mean, there are people that say, well, it's the easy button, all this stuff. I don't care. It's a great slider. It's very powerful. It does a lot to the photo, as you can see. AI Accent, about 37. AI Sky Enhancer, about 19. So one more time, there's before and there's after. So I like it. It's getting fairly blue, so I want to change some of that as well here in a second. But of course, before I did that, I stopped in AI Structure, and as you can see, I went negative. And what I did is, let me show you the mask. Another reason I'm not doing this, I got several bits of masking here in this video, and I did that on the sky. I didn't feel like I needed to do that on the water. It's already in motion. It has that very fluid look. I don't feel like that needs to be smoothed any, but I do like to do that kind of stuff to the sky. So I did that there, and then I went over to color. And in color, what I did is I went into blue and I took down the saturation and increased the luminance. And so I'm going for kind of a monochrome kind of look, basically. But the before, you can see, was getting really blue, which can happen quite a bit. And as much as I love my blues, I didn't want this photo to be blue like that. So as you can see, I went in here and I basically desaturated the blue, but also brightened it. In other words, increased the luminance. Okay, at this point, I was having come from there to there. I popped over to the Creative tab and I added some mystical. And that's just simply because I like the look of mystical. It gives a little bit of that romantic shadow, kind of fun, kind of dreaminess, but it's not a massive change. But there's the before and there's the after. It kind of creates a little bit of contrast as well. And while on that subject, I next went into the Portrait tab and did the same thing with Orton Effect Type 1, which gives a little bit more of that look as well. I like it. It's fairly dreamy. And one more time, here's before and here's after. So with those two tools and the ones on the first tab, I feel like I've come a pretty good way. So I was there and I got to there. And of course, I wasn't satisfied with the photo, so I went onto the Pro tab. And there's a couple of things that I used here that I use quite a bit. The first one's advanced contrast. So let me turn that on. And it's not a really massive difference. I did mid-tone contrast and some shadow contrast. It's visually, slightly different, but not massive. But again, it was just the ability to refine contrast is what I wanted to achieve. But then I went into adjustable gradient. Oh, no, I didn't actually. I apologize. I went into dodge and burn. I did this photo like a week and a half ago, or a week ago. So I'm trying to remember everything. I went into dodge and burn, and this is something Serge does a lot. Serge and I were teaching Luminar classes a couple of the evenings to the participants in the work group, and something he does a lot is dodge and burn. If you've seen any of his videos, if you don't follow him on YouTube, he's a great photographer, great instructor. I highly recommend that. But he uses dodge and burn a lot, and I thought it really made a whole lot of sense here. So another reason I'm not doing this live is because there's a lot of dodging and burning. But what I did primarily was I wanted to basically brighten some of these areas like the snow on the mountains and some of this water. And so let me turn that on. If you look at those two areas, you can see that they get a little bit brighter. I don't know how well you can tell, but there's the before, a little bit darker, those snow-capped peaks, if you will, as well as some of the whiter parts of these receding waves. And now a little bit brighter. It's subtle, but basically what I'm doing is by dodging and burning, I'm just creating a little bit more contrast between the brighter and the darker. That's what contrast is, right? It's the difference between dark and light, and dodge and burn helps me achieve that. And so I did some stuff in advanced contrast. I was thinking I used adjustable gradient, but I didn't. But in dodge and burn, by lightening and darkening things selectively, you're increasing that contrast, adds a little bit of drama to the image. And at this point, I kind of thought I was done with the photo. So there's the before and the after. But the next thing I did is I went and I added an erased image layer. And there were a few spots here, a couple in the sky. I'd been getting splashed basically all week. Not badly, but you're getting mist and spray. We shot waterfalls, so there's 100-foot waterfalls and there's spray coming, things like that. So let me turn this erased image layer on. But basically there's a spot there, I see a spot over there. And then while I was on that layer, I ended up doing some work. Now, usually on an erased image layer, I just do the eraser, and then every other adjustment, I go to a new layer for, I don't really know why, but sometimes I'm on the erased image layer and I'll just go do some edits. I actually recommend leaving the erased image layer alone. I didn't follow my own advice here, so I'm aware of the oddness, what's the word? The contradiction, I guess, that I'm telling you. But I recommend leaving the erased image layer alone, because if you ever need to, change it or I don't know what, I just prefer to have the erasing by itself. In this case, I think I was honestly so excited about the photo, I didn't pay attention. I started doing edits on this layer. So first thing I did was go into color, and I took the saturation down because it's still too blue for me. So that was a simple drop of -20. I did go into black and white conversion here. Let me turn that on. and converted to black and white. And you can see with the luminance, I brought the luminance of the cyan and the blue down a little bit. So I basically darkened them a little bit. It's just slight, but I was just kind of playing around with it. And then on the saturation for the cyan and blue, I brought those back a little bit. So I didn't want a purely black and white image. I wanted a little bit of that blue color. And blue is basically the only color that was in this scene, not including black and white, which is basically no color, right? So I wanted a little bit of blue, but not all of it. So I brought back a little bit of saturation while playing with the luminance as well. So it was sort of a black and white conversion, but not entirely. And then the next thing I did was go into Details Enhancer, and I'll show you the mask. I just bumped up the small and medium details, and then I painted them in. I don't need them in the sky. I must have messed something up there. Okay, got that out. But basically, I went in here to the mountaintops, and in fact, I would come back and with a little bit different size mouse, get a little bit more of that. You don't have to be exact. All I'm trying to do is bring up some of the detail in the areas where you expect to see detail, which is going to be these peaks. And then I did some on these rocks over here on the right-hand side. Might add a little bit more. The reason I didn't really touch these other rocks is simply because they're so dark, I don't think you're going to notice the detail addition there. And so, but these on the right are a little bit lighter, and these mountain peaks definitely are bright enough to see, and I wanted to amp up the detail there. Now, I could have used Dodge and Burn to brighten these rocks a little bit, but I really like the solid darkness of them, kind of surrounded by some of the white from the receding water, so I left those alone. Okay, so if I turn off this layer, you can see we did quite a bit here. There's the before, fairly blue. Obviously, there's some spots which you can take out quite easily, but fairly blue. And then the after, much more kind of almost a monochrome, right? And in fact, if I didn't show you that I brought back a little bit of the blue, I think it's subtle enough that you would think that that is a monochrome conversion, even though it's not entirely monochrome. So that's the erased image layer with a couple of filters. Again, I recommend keeping the erased image layer by itself and doing further adjustments on a different adjustment layer. At this point, I thought I was done, but of course, being kind of curious and experimental, I decided to come back. So I turned on another layer, or added a new adjustment layer, and I did a couple of other things. First thing is I went into the light tool, and you can mask in the light tool on subsequent layers. You can't do it on the base layer, but on additional adjustment layers, if you use the light tool, you can go in and mask that in selectively, which is kind of handy. So here, this was basically just a gradient mask. Let me show you. There we go. That's basically for the foreground. And what I did was I basically just lifted the whites. Let me hit done, so that's closed. I basically lifted the whites by 32 just in the foreground because, again, I'm trying to pop the look of that long exposure element, those whites from the receding waves. I'm trying to pop that, and I didn't care as much about the white in the sky, so I just wanted to bring it in on the bottom, and so I just used a gradient mask with the whites on the light tool and just applied it on the bottom of the photo. One more time into color, and this time I just took the saturation down a very minor, -8. It was just probably, you may not even be able to notice, just a tiny bit. There's a little bit of blue. I don't think I didn't do anything on the blue specifically. I just took the overall color scheme down by -8, just a final kind of touch-up adjustment. Okay, and then the last couple of bits, over on the Pro tab, I went to Advanced Contrast, and to turn that on, you can see I did a little bit of mid-tone contrast, like 29. So not a big deal, just a little bit of contrast. So here's the before and the after. And I generally start with mid-tone contrast when I'm using the advanced contrast filter, just because I feel like there's often, it depends on the image of course, but there's often a lot of mid-tones available, and I feel like that's where I'm going to see more impact, I guess, of use of the filter. So I did that and was pretty happy with it, and then the final touch-up was adjustable gradient. Let me turn that on, and as you see here, I can show you set orientation. I moved it basically level with the horizon line. And you can see I added a little bit more drama. So in the top, so if you select the gray, your gray shows you where you are top and bottom, right? So I'm in top, I bumped up the contrast and pulled down the shadows a little bit. And so again, what I'm doing, increasing contrast, decreasing shadows, is I'm more difference between bright and dark. So in the top of the photo, that's helping to pull out a little bit more of this area that I did the dodge and burn on, increasing that shadow a little bit, and just kind of adding a little bit of drama, which is really what I wanted to do. Also took down the warmth a tiny bit, And then in the bottom, bumped up the contrast a little bit, took down the shadows, actually increased the highlights a little bit, and pulled down the warmth a tiny bit. So I have a little bit of blue, but really not very much blue. But I think I have a heavily contrasty image that's very different from the base photo that I started with. So I was able to really amplify those whites and highlights in the moving water, which is what I wanted to do. And in particular, I think it works here because that's a black sand beach. I mean, basically, Iceland is like a big rock made out of lava. So I guess it's all black. I don't know if all the beaches are black, but probably are. But this was a beautiful black sand beach, and that white, I think, really popped there. So that was my thinking. So there's my base photo and my edit and the full before and after. There you go, before and after. I was really happy with the composition, getting the flow of the water around the rocks here to the right, and of course these long streaks coming from the left, and then having those strong kind of jagged peaks in the distance. I just felt like it really worked for me. So one more time, there's before and after. And that's it, my friends. That is this video. I'll be back as soon as I can. There's a lot going on. I've got some great news. I got some things happening. I'd love to share with you all. I just can't right now, but more videos as soon as I can get to them. But it's going to be a tough week, I think, in terms of video quantity. So hopefully you felt like the quality of this one is good and it holds you over to the next one. I do appreciate you watching. I miss hanging out with you guys and just chilling and making videos. More soon, though. Thanks again for watching. Have a great day. More Iceland photos coming as well. And by the way, if you don't follow me like on Instagram or Twitter, feel free to hit me up on those or Flickr. And then, of course, if you want to join my newsletter, you can do that on my blog, which is linked down below, just jimnix.com. Thanks for watching, my friends. I'll see you soon. Have a great day. Take care, and adios.